Michael, great to speak to you once again. So come on, tell us, what is the difference between tapping a government loan scheme and running to the government and asking for a bailout? Because you've been very critical of any airlines who've asked for money from governments.
No, we haven't actually. We've been very supportive. I mean, most airlines across Europe are engaged in payroll support schemes. We're supportive of those state aids that are transparent and are made available to all companies or competitors equally, such as the payroll support schemes across Europe, such as the UK loan scheme. We qualify for the UK loan scheme because we're the largest passenger airline in the UK, and we have a BBB credit rating. What we're opposed to is, on top of that, is the illegal state aid that Air France, under which Air France will receive about 10 billion, Lufthansa 12 billion, Alitalia, an airline that has been bankrupt for a number of years, has been nationalised and will now receive 3 billion. We're without any corresponding supports to the other airlines operating in that market. Like the French are refunding French taxes to Air France, but not to EasyJet or Ryanair or BA, who also operate in France. What we're calling for is an end to those illegal discriminatory state aids, and by all means confine the industry to payroll supports and government loans, but that are made available to all airlines operating in those economies.
Again, you've been very critical, as you say, of those kinds of schemes. Are you going to be looking to other governments for support, though? Are you going to be looking for some of the payroll support schemes in other countries, such as Spain, and trying to get support from other governments?
No, we qualify for the payroll support schemes, Anna, in all those countries, as do all the other airlines. And we're very grateful for that support. Without that support, the industry, even Ryanair, wouldn't survive. So what we're asking the question is, we can survive for many months, if not years, on payroll support schemes. We don't need any illegal state aid on top of that. We're asking the question, why does Air France, on top of massive payroll support schemes, need additional state aid when they're not even flying at the moment? Why does Lufthansa need 12 billion when their payroll is being paid entirely by the German, Austrian, Belgian and Swiss governments? What they're doing here is they're filling up their satchels with state aid, and they will use that as we emerge out of the COVID-19 crisis to engage in massive below-cost selling, to damage or to distort competition with airlines like Ryanair, EasyJet and BA all across Europe. Or Lufthansa will simply use it to buy up all the rest of the competitors in Europe, like Condor, which is an inevitability once we're through this crisis. And we've asked the question repeatedly. I think we welcome Margaret Vestager's comments this morning. Why is it that the German and the French governments, the people who keep telling everybody else you must obey by the rules, are the biggest state aid dopers in all of this, when other governments like the UK, the Irish, the Spanish, the Central and Eastern European governments are not bailing out their airlines because we don't need those bailouts?
One of the arguments you'll get here out of Berlin, Michael, is that they need to ensure there is a carrier that's going to be able to cater to business people and also longer haul flights that a market you don't necessarily serve. If there were no Lufthansa, if there were no Air France, KLM, would Ryanair expand its business to serve those markets?
Well, no, I mean, firstly, the argument is completely specious anyway. I mean, the long haul will take longer to recover, but BA and Iberia all fly long haul, and they're not seeking state aid. I mean, what we've been calling on the European Union to impose under the state aid rules is, if the German government wants to give 12 billion to Lufthansa, it also has to give, on a proportional basis, the same state aid to the other airlines operating in Germany. Not because we want state aid, but that's the way of limiting the amount of illegal state aid that goes to Lufthansa. This is the German government are going to give Lufthansa 12 billion on top of payroll support, on top of tax refunds. Lufthansa don't even need this volume of money. They're just going to use this to wipe out the rest of the competition in the German market. They've already been allowed to buy up Air Berlin, all of the other domestic competitors. Now what they're going to use 12 billion is to massively distort the long-haul flows into Europe for the next number of years, because they can undercut BA, they can undercut Iberia and all the other long-haul carriers who are not receiving illegal state aid. It is a massive distortion of the competition between Europe, and it is something that the European Union should not be allowing to go ahead. Just because the German government is rich doesn't mean that it should be allowed to state aid all of its failing companies or its struggling companies. Some of them should be allowed to go bust, but because they're rich, they can do it. And then they lecture all the other European countries, oh, no, you must all obey by the rules, where we feel free to break them without compunction when it suits us. Lufthansa does not need 12 billion euros of state aid on top of massive payroll support schemes. They just don't need it, but they're like state aid junkies. They see an opportunity to fill their satchels full of state aid that will secure them for the next 5 years and distort the competition with EasyJet, with Ryanair and others.